episode 7, mid-season finale, A Woman's Place is in the Effort of War. It's your boy Icon with some DC TV. And in our last episode, the Legends were about to send themselves to the present when Bishop came shooting out of the sky on a toilet bowl because Gideon, Wave Rider Gideon, she had taken over and she tried to basically keep him captive. So in an effort for Bishop to get away from evil Gideon, he jumped on the toilet bowl, which basically had an ejector seat and a parachute on it. And as he was parachuting down off of the Wave Rider, he crash landed right into the Legends as they were transporting through time. So they landed. They ended up going to a time period. They jumped sooner than they wanted to. The time period that I forgot the year that they ended up in. But when they landed, the time machine was broken because the toilet seat that Bishop was on had busted the time machine, and it broke some of the panels that were used to power the machine. So now, the scientist, not Constantine, he was saying that in order for them to be able to fix the time machine, they need the necessary repairs and parts so they can fix these these conductors so they get so they can get out of there. So then everybody was like, well, how long does it take to get a conductor? He was just like, we need 17 of them, and they didn't know what time period that they were in, so they were just like, we could be in a time where parts and things like that don't even exist. But then they saw Bishop, and then when they saw Bishop, everybody got mad and they were like, that they grabbed him up. And then that's when they heard on the loud horn that the military was coming to investigate. So they were just like, let's get out of here and try to lead the military away from the time machine because they didn't want anybody to see the time machine. So they ran off. They went to the latrine, where the bathrooms were. They used Constantine's key to go into the house pocket dimension. When they went into the pocket dimension, then they ran up on Bishop and they were just like, which Bishop are you? And then he was like, oh, I'm the good Bishop. And then they were just like, well, weren't you the one that blew up our Wave Rider? He was like, yeah. And then she said, well, who sent the robots after us? He was like, that was also me. And then they were just like, well, that doesn't seem like you're the good person. But he said that, in his defense, he thought that they kidnapped him, which is why he thought they were the bad guys. But then after he cloned Gideon's AI and reset it to factory settings, he then learned the truth about the Legends, that the Legends actually were the good guys. And he, in turn, he was the villain of his own story. He said Gideon had made a copy of him, like a robot clone of him that she put out there to carry out the events that he did with, as far as turning on the Legends and everything that happened last season. So, he told me, he's just like, I just want to let you know, he's like, I apologize and everything. But then they told him, they're just like, what, go upstairs, go to John's room, and then we'll figure out what to do with you later. So now they have to come up with a way, to get those conduits fixed so they can get on the time machine and they can travel back to the present. They find out that they're on a military base that specializes in building aircrafts. So the convenience of that was very good. So with them being on that military base where they can build those aircrafts, because Spooner said that she could actually build it as long as she gets the parts. So they end up going down to the aircraft, to the airplane hangar, and they ended up all the girls except for Zari, because Zari went back and OG Zari went back into the totem, and then new Zari 2.0 Zari came back out again, but she stayed in the pocket dimension along with Nate and everybody else. Gideon was in the pocket. No, Gideon went with them to the airplane hangar. So basically, all the girls went to the airplane hangar, and this was around the time of World War II. And during the time of World War II, since all the men were away at war, the women took over the various jobs that the men used to do. They started the women's baseball team, if you're a fan of League of Their Own. The women were taking over jobs. This was the opening where women were allowed to actually work and, do things for themselves and be independent, because they were taking over the jobs that the men used to do. So all the girls go down there to try to get the jobs. Of course, Sarah and Ava, since they're white and blonde, they got jobs on the floor building the airplane. And this was it wasn't funny, but it was funny because the guy who runs the plant, the guy that runs the airplane hangar, is a racist douchebag. And when he saw all the girls, he looked at Ava and Sarah, and he was like, oh, you two on the floor building aircrafts. And then he saw Gideon, and then when he saw Gideon, he was like, well, I need a new secretary, so he's like, how fast can you type? And then she's like, I can process over 1 million words a minute. And he's just like, whatever. He's like, yo, go make me the coffee. And I was just like, well, damn. and then as soon as I was like, we got Sarah, we got Ava, we got Gideon out the way, and then he looked at Astra and Spoon, and I was like, here it comes. I said, here it comes. He's like, here come the races. And then, And then even Astra and Spooner were kind of just looking around like, so what do you want us to do? And then he was like, oh, he's like, oh, he said, take the mops and the brooms and you're going to be the janitors. And then Astra was like, the janitors? And then he was like, yeah, because we don't want colored girls on the floor. And I was like, damn. I was like, just like that. And Astra is going to kill somebody before this season is over, regarding like all this racist stuff. But she was upset, like she blew a gasket, and then she was, then she said she was just like, there's no point in us even being here if we can't get access to the parts that we need to build the conduits. But then Spooner said, she said this could be a blessing in disguise because since we're the janitors, she said that we can use the janitor equipment to smuggle the parts that we need for her to build, the conduits. So then Astra agreed to do it reluctantly, and and then the two of them said everybody got their jobs, and now we're all off to the races. Sarah and Ava, they're basically trying to like figure out like what they can do as far as like getting parts, trying to smuggle parts in. There was a moment where Sarah came around the corner and she went to go say something to Astra, went to go say something to Spooner. And then when Ava and Sarah turned the corner and saw Spooner and Astra bob on the floor, they was like, ah, shit. And then Sarah was just like, hey, look, guys, you actually don't have to be here. She's like, you can go back to the, to the pocket dimension and we'll handle it. And then Astra was like, no, she was just like, we're a team. And then they're just like, are you sure you're okay? And she was like, hell no, but I'm going to do what I got to do for the sake of the team. She needed the necessary parts in order for Spooner to build those conduits. But nothing happens without the foreman's approval. So Astra went into his office to basically forge his signature or make copies or trick him into approving the parts that they need to build their stuff. He had one of like those signature stamp things where he puts that signature stamp on it, then it's official. So she basically went to like stamp it so she can, I said, so it can be official, so they can get the specific parts they need for their conduits. But then Mr. Staples, that's the foreman guy's name, he came back into the room and then he saw Astra there. And then he had the nerve to be like, oh, it's bad enough I got colored people in the building, but he's like, y'all sitting here trying to steal from me now. And then Astra got upset to the point where her emotions kicked in, which are tied into her powers. And then when her emotions kicked in, she blasted homeboy and froze him. And now he's just a statue. And then Astra was just like, ah, shit. So then after Astra freaked out, she called Sarah, she called Ava, and then they were just like, how did this happen? And they're just like, well, he said some racist shit. And they were just like, all right, what they ended up doing was they threw a coat over him and pretended like he was furniture. But then Astra decided, she was just like, well, nobody knows that this dude is frozen yet, that Mr. Staples is frozen. So she said, what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to take over and run the floor so we can get our parts done, we can get everything taken care of. So this way, she said, I'll do the approving for, on his behalf. And then she took some liberties of like making certain changes throughout the thing, like, having the women's bathroom be closer so they wouldn't have to walk far away, having food on the floor for them. And then she got to the point where she decided to integrate the black women with the rest of the white folks, because earlier on when Sarah and Ava had taken the jobs, like some of the white women that were showing them how to do the job and how to fix everything, and then Ava was just like, oh, thank you for you've been real nice and you've been real friendly. She specifically said, she was like, oh, don't worry about it, us gals got to stick together. So Astra's thinking, she's just like, well, if that's the case, let's try to do something, let's try to make some real change. Because there were some black women that she was talking to, like one specifically, there was one black woman specifically she was interacting with, and the woman was just like, oh, just keep your head down, do your job, baby, go, do this, do that. But she knew that they could do more. She found out that the black women there, they were engineers, they were, they were handy women, like they were able to fix things, they were able to build things. And then Astra was just like, why are these people, like, why are they not on the floor? Because it's like she refused to understand the concept about how things worked back then. So she came up with a new rule on behalf of Mr. Staples where she integrated, like the entire plan, where the black women now were going to be on the floor with the white people, and they were all going to work on the ship, and build the aircrafts together. Now, here's what got me, because when they put the sign up that said, as of today, the plant will now officially be integrated, the white men saw that and they was just like, oh, I ain't working with no coloreds. I refuse, and tell Mr. Staples if they gonna have colored people on the floor, I quit. And then all the guys got up, they got mad and like they walked off. They quit the plan. I'm like, okay, fine. I expected that. I expected that to happen. But then the crazy thing about it was the women quit. And I was like, oh, shit. And then it's like, y'all got me. They got me on that one. And then I was just like, yeah, so when you said earlier that us women got to stick together, you were basically talking about white women. And I was like, that's fucked up. And because they dipped. Like, oh, like it's so weird though. Like, the thought process is so weird because it's just like around that time period, women had it hard enough where women weren't able to vote, they weren't able to have full-time jobs, they weren't able to do much, they were just there just to like be housewives and like, like cook, clean, and take care of the children. If you're being suppressed, why would you then suppress other people? Like, it's just like, oh, like, we're being kept down, but we're better than these women. I was like, you know what, fuck all yeah. So then when they left, everybody was just like, well, shit. Now, because the president's wife was showing up, and they said that we need to get this, we need to get this aircraft fixed because they, like the black woman that Astra was talking to, she specifically said, that if we don't get the aircraft fixed, it doesn't matter who's white or black, they're going to cancel the whole program and everybody's going to be out of job. And we can't afford to not have jobs because it's like, we got families to feed and, kids, etc. So then Asher was just like, well, if that's the case. And she was just like, didn't you tell me earlier that you and the rest of the women are great engineers and you're capable of doing this and doing that? And she was like, of course we are. And then she was just like, all right, so build the airplane. Let's build the airplane. So then everybody got hard to work. Sarah was there, Ava was there. The only two white women represented. The legends showed up. Gideon came in to help, help with the efficiency of the whole matter. The black women, everybody got together and did what they had to do to build the aircraft. And they got the aircraft actually built in record time. And then Mr. Staples woke up. He was unfrozen from the thing that Astra had put him in. And when Mr. Staples got on the floor, he was like, what are these colored women doing on the floor? And I was like, here we go. But then just before he's about to kick them all out, the president's wife showed up. And then when she showed up, she was just like, oh, this aircraft is a remarkable piece of ingenuity. And then she was like, oh, who built it? And then Astra was like, the women that you see before you. And then she saw the changes that Astra and the gang had made as far as like, the bathroom situation and having the food on the floor. She was like, oh, this is remarkable, and it's like, I've never seen such a fine airplane built before in my life. And then she told Mr. Staples, she was like, you should be very proud of these women. Then he tried to play along because he didn't want to get fired. And then, then after that, and then she was just like, oh, she's like, we're going to have integration all across the globe, all across the United States, to build the best machinery possible. So that was actually a win. And, the everybody that worked on that airplane basically reaped the benefits of it. All the white folks that left had nothing to do with it. And they struck, like the black women struck, like a victory for women's rights and for the, and for the right, for civil rights as well. So that was pretty dope to see. That was very cool to see. And then in the totem, Nate was basically trying to see if he would fit in with the ancestors in the totem. So Zari 2.0 and Bayrod, they tried to give him some, some tips and some lessons while they were trying to, help him out as far as like, fitting in the totem. Bishop was walking around being very annoying, asking them to have food brought up to his room, asking for tea and hot baths and showers and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually Bayrod got mad because he felt like Bishop was basically taking advantage of him, like he was like his maid or something. And then, Bishop had apologized. And he said that he was actually working on a device because he said that not Constantine, the doctor, they said that his time machine, it doesn't allow him the ability to navigate, which is why they keep ending up in random places. So he built a device that Gideon can control that will allow them to navigate and go to the place that they actually want to go. They just had to go downstairs and install it. So everybody went downstairs. It's nighttime now. The professor is installing the device so they can get the hell out of there. The team is basically just like talking and having a conversation, chilling and everything. And then somebody had brought up the point. They said that the integration and the acceptance that happened with the black women being allowed to work on the airplanes, somebody said that change wasn't supposed to happen for another 2 years. And then when that happened, Ava was like, oh shit. And then that's when like the evil Wave Rider showed up. The evil Wave Rider came out of nowhere. And when the evil Wave Rider came up, like these soldiers came out and started firing at the legends and, and took aim and took shots at the legends. While they were trying to kill the legends, everybody was running, and Constantine had fixed the time machine at that point, and then he told everybody, they was just like, yo, get yourselves to the time machine, hurry up. So everybody's running to the time machine, meanwhile they're getting shot at, they're fighting these clones, and then just before the legends got pinned down, and they weren't going to be able to get to the time machine, Bishop tried to make amends for all the wrongdoing that he did. He had a machine gun and he started firing at the soldiers and he killed 3 of the soldiers. And then once the soldiers turned their backs to go deal with Bishop, the legends ran and took off. And then when the Legends jumped in the time machine, they were telling Bishop, like, you know, come on, you got to come with us. And then Bishop was like, nah, he said, I'm good. You guys go save the timeline. And then after that, right before the Legends got transported into whatever time period they're going to next, one of the soldiers had killed Bishop. So now the original Bishop is actually dead. And that's actually kind of sad because he never wanted to be the villain, and he did end up going out as the hero. So that was nice to see. Like, he saved the Legends in the end, so kudos to him. And then the Legends disappeared. You know, they went to like God knows where. But the kicker is, when the soldiers took their masks off, and they took the masks off the soldiers that Bishop had killed, they were 3 members of the Legends, because what happened was Evil Gideon, she made evil clones of the Legends. There are copies of the Legends now. So now the Legends are basically fighting against evil versions of themselves, and an evil version of Gideon, and an evil Wave Rider. So that was cool. That was a dope cliffhanger, you know, for the mid-season finale. And I look forward to seeing these Clone Wars take effect as time progresses. We now know why Sarah's not involved in the Flash Armageddon crossover, because she's too busy running through time trying to run from these clones. So that was it. And thank you for tuning in. So yeah, so like I said, cool episode of Legends of Tomorrow. I'm feeling for Astra and Spooner, because like this shit is like, this is bothering me. But you know, those were the times back then, and all we can do is just watch our history and learn from it, and hopefully not repeat it. So let me know what you thought about the episode. Let me know what you think about the clones. You know, the whole thing with the Legends fighting the Legends clones. Are you okay with that? Are you not okay with that? Are you okay with Gideon, with robot evil Wave Rider? Are you okay with the Wave Rider being the big bad of the season? Because that's something that's never done before. Share your questions, your comments, and your concerns, and we'll talk about it. Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And for all your DC content, definitely hit me up, because we're doing Batwoman. We're doing Legends of Tomorrow. We're doing Young Justice. You know, we're doing the Flash, Armageddon crossover. For you Marvel fans, we're doing Hawkeye as well. So a lot of good stuff in the pipeline. So check it out. Legends doesn't come back until January 12th, so we gotta wait for Legends of Tomorrow. But again, you can check out my other content as things roll on. Until next time for some Legends of Tomorrow action. Take care, and I'm out this bitch.